Thank you very much. Hard to follow Peter Orszag. I agree with the assessment that he is one of the most brilliant economists of our time. And I certainly have never been accused of having one of those brains like he has, Mr. Secretary, that's for sure. I'd like to commend Pete Peterson for the indefatigable work that he's done over these many years and focusing everyone's attention on these unsustainable trends that Herbert Stein accurately, in my opinion, predicted cannot and will not continue. And the reality is we're sitting here in the United States of America while they're rioting in Europe over reductions in various benefits and educational costs. And our Deficit Commission reported out today, the Rivlin Domenici Commission reported out. All of them are focused on exactly the things that Pete Peterson and Peter Orszag were talking about, these unsustainable trends. The reason we're not taking the same type of dramatic action that the French government did relative to its standards, increasing the retirement age from 60 to 62, and the Cameron Coalition government in the UK, is because, as de Gaulle said it, we have this signal privilege, this signal advantage, and we're able to print money. And for at least the last decade, we've printed it and given it to the Chinese, who have sent an awful lot of goods and in the process raised hundreds of millions of their citizens out of abject poverty into at least a more sustainable, if not middle-class existence, and have become, quite frankly, the most remarkable economic event in the history of the world, without exception. But this morning, watching Senator Gregg talk about the Deficit Commission, I completely concur with him that this issue is going to be joined, and these unsustainable trends, both on Medicare and the interest on the debt and so forth, are going to stop. It's only a question of whether we do it or whether the market stops buying our bonds and funding our deficits. I completely concur, based on my experience for many years on the Mayo Clinic board and as someone who provides billions of dollars worth of self-insured health benefits. The trends are unsustainable. And they're unsustainable because people don't want to get at the fundamental issue, and that is the fact that our medical technology has outrun our ability to pay for it in unlimited amounts for anyone who would like to have it. And since there is relatively low correlation of elasticities of demand for medical services of extreme measures in particular in the last few months of life, sooner or later these trends are going to be brought under control with either rationing or price allocation. And I think that the real question then becomes, in my mind, what do we do on the other side of the P&L statement in terms of getting our economy to grow faster than the rates of growth that Peter was talking about, and we concur with that. Our chief economist, Gene Huang, would predict in 2011 about 2.5% GDP growth rates, industrial production about 4.5%. That's actually down a bit from where it is because the inventory replenishment cycle is largely complete. The problem with that is the difference between a 2.5% growth rate and a 3.5% GDP growth rate over 10 years is about 10 million jobs. And it takes a bare minimum of 2.5% GDP growth rate just to absorb the new entries into the workforce based on our population. So what should we do about it? It seems to me that there are three things. One, we must change the corporate tax structure in the United States to favor industrial activities as opposed to financial activities. Second, we must reduce our importation of petroleum from countries who wish us ill, and they own about 90% of the world's oil reserves. which are increasingly fought over, literally and figuratively, by the emerging economies. China's up to about 8.5 million barrels of oil a day. We're at about 19 million barrels a day, down from about 20 million barrels a day. A little vignette in the FT, or the Wall Street Journal, yesterday mentioned that BP had sold their interest in an Argentinian oil company to guess who? The Chinese. So the outlook for our economy, absent doing something about our reliance on imported petroleum, is very significantly bad. And then finally, we simply have to embrace the growth of the rest of the world. There are 6 billion other citizens of the planet, as opposed to those here in North America. It's the fastest growing economy in the world. The international trade is now larger than the United States. It's growing about twice the rate of GDP growth rate of any individual country.